This year marks the 55th anniversary of the release of Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece, A Clockwork Orange, based on the Anthony Burgess novel of the same title, published in 1962. A Clockwork Orange is a disturbing tale, but what is perhaps even more disturbing is that in 55 years since the film was originally released, certain elements of this sci-fi saga are shockingly becoming true. Now, if you haven't read or seen A Clockwork Orange, I advise that you put it on your to-do list. The film depicts a dystopian Britain of the near future. The nation is overrun with young gangs carrying out violent criminal acts. But the desperate government of the day isn't cracking down on these criminals. Rather, it's seemingly embracing a kinder, gentler approach to crime by attempting to reprogram the hooligans. And when that doesn't work, well, the government sometimes goes out of its way to actually reward the hooligans. Tell me, does this ring familiar in terms of contemporary Canadian politics, as well as our so-called criminal justice system? You know, how the worst of the worst are still granted bail, how sentences are laughably lenient, even for the most horrific crimes, how serial killers are moved to medium security facilities. A hug-a-thug philosophy is now routinely embraced rather than any sort of deterrence. It's downright baffling. Meanwhile, the federal Liberals pretend that the real war on crime means confiscating the firearms of law-abiding Canadian citizens, as though that will have any effect whatsoever other than virtue signaling. Oh, and God forbid you actually defend yourself from a weaponized intruder invading your home in the wee hours of the morning. You'll have the book thrown at you. It's sick. In any event, one of the methods employed for reprogramming the thugs depicted in A Clockwork Orange is an experimental psychiatric strategy called the Ludovico technique, combining some mood-altering drugs with constant exposure to imagery depicting violence. The theory is that the patient will be so sickened by the very idea of actually doing anything violent that he'll physically be unable to carry out criminal acts. Check out this scene in which the film's protagonist, the incarcerated murderer Alex DeLarge, undergoes the Ludovico treatment in exchange for shortening his prison sentence.
You needn't take it any further, sir. You've proved to me that all this ultra-violence and killing is wrong and terribly wrong. I've learned my lesson, sir. I see now what I've never seen before. I'm cured, praise God!
You're not cured yet, boy.
But sirs, missus, I see that it's wrong. It's wrong because it's like against society. It's wrong because everybody has the right to live and be happy without being told, chopped and knifed.
No, boy, you really must leave it to us. But be cheerful about it. In less than a fortnight now, you will be a free man.
You know, I think former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is a fan of the fictional Ludovico technique. Trudeau seemed to be very supportive of a low-rent, real-life version of this fictional psychiatric method. I hearken back to 2017 when Blackface deemed that it was improper to incarcerate returning ISIS fighters to Canada. After all, that might be considered not very culturally sensitive in some circles. And hey, what the heck, boys will be boys, you know, even if those lads subscribe to bombings and beheadings, sexual slavery, setting infidels ablaze and throwing gays from rooftops so they can call upon distant supporters to carry out acts of global terrorism. But never mind, let's forgive and forget, shall we? Besides, those chaps might vote Liberal in future elections. And let's never forget this Trudeau soundbite for the ages.
This is not the standards we expect. Immigrants, Canadians, all of us who are here expect that we would have a minimum bar, that people would not, people who come here would not be guilty of trying to plan terrorist attacks against this country.
A Canadian is a Canadian, and you devalue the citizenship of every Canadian in this place and in this country when you break down and make it conditional for anyone. We have the rule of law in this country, and you can't take away citizenship if you don't like what someone does. You can't do that.
Yes, a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian, even if that Canadian is hell-bent on a mission to destroy Canada. So instead of the stick, Trudeau employed the carrot, hoping to reprogram these aspiring terrorists. That's right, embracing liberal hug-a-thug strategies. Justin sought to transform homegrown Sharia soldiers into model Canadian citizens. Since the Ludovico treatment does not actually exist, part of the way in which authorities reprogrammed these wannabe Islamist terrorists was to have them take part in poetry classes. Oh, yes, I do not jest, folks. And really, can you imagine? I mean, poetry classes for Islamist terrorists? What would that look like? Maybe something like this?
Well, Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating a curds and whey. Long came a Spidey, sat down beside, he said, "Hey, what's in the bowl, bitch?" Oh!
You know, you got to wonder, did the reprogramming of these jihadis also involve drag queen story time? And if not, why not? Well, actually, I think we know the answer to that, don't we? Back to the film, in a subtle scene, the government's rationale for backing the Ludovico treatment is indeed revealed. Check out this clip in which the Minister of the Interior has a conversation with a prison warden as they tour the jail yard for potential human guinea pigs.
How many to a cell?
4, just gone, sir.
Cram criminals together, and what do you get? Concentrated criminality. Crime in the midst of punishment.
I agree, sir. What we need are larger prisons, more money.
Not a chance, my dear fellow. The government can't be concerned any longer with outmoded penological theories. Soon we may be needing all our prison space for political offenders. Common criminals like these are best dealt with on a purely curative basis. Kill the criminal reflex, that's all.
Did you catch that line from the Minister of the Interior? Quote, "Soon we may be needing all our prison space for political offenders," end quote. Indeed, is this the real reason why violent monsters are being sprung from Canadian jails, so that there's enough space for political prisoners? Do you really think that's so far-fetched? If so, I urge you to solicit the opinion of Freedom Convoy leader Tamara Leach. What's more, with a plethora of censorship bills afoot, it's only a matter of time when these bills are enacted into law, thereby creating a new criminal class. Oh, yeah, sure. The only crime these so-called criminals will be committing will be wrong thought, yet for a card-carrying liberal these days, wrong thought might be the most heinous offense of all. Again, going back to the film, the Ludovico treatment is only one element of the future UK government's crackdown on crime, seemingly embracing the old adage of, if you can't beat them, join them. The government goes on to embrace a bizarre job creation scheme in which convicted criminals are hired as police officers. Indeed, later in the film, the chemically castrated Alex learns about this the hard way when he has the misfortune of meeting up with a couple of his former colleagues who now don the uniforms of law enforcement.
What's the trouble, sir? Oh, no.
Well, if it isn't little Alex. Long time no Vinnie, Drew. How goes?
It's impossible. I don't believe it.
Evidence of the old glasses. Nothing up our sleeve. No magic, little Alex. A job for two who are now of job age. The police.
Alas, what follows next is Alex enduring a severe beating at the hands of these two constables, proving that you can put a thug in a uniform, but what remains is still, well, a garden variety thug. And I make mention of this scene because of an incredible news story that broke earlier this month. Check out this story by Sky News, headlined, "Dereliction of Duty. Met Police Relaxed Vetting to Meet Recruitment Targets." Incredibly, it was revealed that the Metropolitan Police in London had hired more than 130 officers who were actually convicted criminals. This included David Garrick and Cliff Mitchell, both of whom are serial rapists. Mitchell, 26, was given a life sentence for attacks on 2 victims over 9 years and was initially rejected from the police force because of a previous allegation of child rape. But Sky News notes that a vetting panel wanted to reduce so-called disproportionality towards ethnic minority groups, so the panel overturned the decision, and Mitchell was indeed allowed to join the force in August 2020. As for Garrick, he is described as one of the UK's worst ever sex offenders. He joined the Met in 2001, but a revetting error in 2017 meant he was allowed to work as an armed police officer until he was arrested in 2021. He's now serving 37 life sentences. Even so, somehow, the likes of Mitchell and Garrick and more than 100 others were deemed to be the right stuff. They got to wear police uniforms and carry guns, much like Alex's former partners in crime, Georgie and Dim. Isn't DEI fantastic? I flag this example because it increasingly seems like Canada is only about 5 years behind the UK when it comes to wackadoodle liberal policies meant to jettison democratic principles.